Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2, Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. Talk a little LSU-Nicholls later on in this hour. Tigers and Colonels, little Monday Night Baseball from the box 4 hours from right now. So I'll give you my thoughts on what to look for in that one. Plus, the Saints are making some coaching hires, so we'll discuss that as well. But we kick off the hour with Wilson Alexander of The Advocate. Got a piece up at theadvocate.com right now. It's titled, LSU may have a way to help players earn more money than the Tigers will be able to pay them. Wilson joins us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Wilson, how we doing? Do we have Wilson? Wilson,
hey,
you there?
Can you hear me?
I got you now. I believe we weren't hitting a button there, but we got you. So, look, I want to discuss this story because I think we're all entering a new frontier here that is different than the Wild West that we've seen. As right now, basically, you go to the booster base, whether it's grassroots or the big money donors, and you put all the money into a collective, and you try to dish out as much of it as you can to buy a roster. I think everyone is on that page. At what point will that no longer be the case?
Well, potentially this summer, as the House settlement has a part in it where there's an enforcement arm. That is, every NIL deal over $600 has to go through this clearinghouse, which is going to be run by Deloitte. And in theory, that is supposed to curb the pay-for-play activity that you just referenced, where collectives have just sort of turned into this thing that is designed to help you fund your rosters. And it's sort of true NIL is obviously out there, but it hasn't become the main sort of engine for building your rosters. So that would, in theory, curb pay-for-play activity. Now, we'll see if that actually happens, because there's a lot of questions about that as to what are the future of collectives. Can that sort of thing actually be enforced? I'm sure it'll face legal challenges because one of the things that the NCAA has said is that they want those NIL deals to be fair market value and serve a valid business purpose. Well, how you define that may change person to person. So, in theory, it could end this summer, or at least certainly lessen in importance. But we'll kind of have to see how that plays out because it's a little bit uncertain right now.
The other piece to this is the revenue sharing portion, and you write in your story that LSU is expected to max that out at just north of $20 million. But there's a way to actually get the players a little bit more money. I think that's the genesis of why you wrote this story. So walk me through those two pieces to this puzzle.
Yes, in the first year, that's going to be the $20.5 million, and LSU, as you said, certainly plans to pay up to that. But the new recruiting frontier, the new battleground, is really going to be how do you exceed the cap? And LSU's plan is it's partnered with Playfly, which is its longtime multimedia rights partner anyway, in this program called Playfly Max. And they did that last summer. But the sort of details of how that are going to work and the significance of it sort of became apparent at LSU's board meeting on Friday when the amended contract between the two parties was approved. And what's going to happen is that there are going to be members of Playfly staff who are on LSU's campus and helping out, trying to find real, true NIL deals. Things like you would see Garrett Nussmeier with Powerade or Livy Dunn with Buori, trying to leverage what LSU's brand is and the corporate sponsorships that they already have to get these players more money than they can be paid by the school.
So it essentially is a third party that is matchmaking athletes and brand. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, in a way. I think the third party element is interesting there because LSU is certainly part of this. I mean, this went through the Board of Supervisors. This is something that LSU will be part of. So it's not necessarily full-on third party, but Playfly is sort of a third party in this, and they'll be able to help leverage those things and try to arrange those deals.
So By E Traditions is obviously LSU's collective at this point that is basically the honey hole, and you just distribute things out of there. What do you make of the future of that organization and I guess collectives around the country?
It's just really unclear right now in the long-term future. I think there's an important distinction there between sort of short-term importance and long-term future. Because in the short term, body traditions is still really important to LSU. Kelly Zinn, LSU's deputy AD, emphasized that they want to be aggressive in the basketball transfer portal here coming up to support Matt McMahon, and a lot of that's going to be contingent on the dollars coming from the collective. So over the next few months here, it's still really important. Maybe even if LSU, depending on how active it needs to get in the spring transfer portal window for football, like it would still serve a purpose there. But past July 1, when the House settlement is expected to go into effect, obviously that still has to be approved by the judge in April. The collective's future is really unclear, because LSU's kind of has to figure that out to see, sort of what the national landscape is, what is allowed. If it is allowed to continue to operate and would in some capacity, then it could have a role. But what that's going to be is just sort of unknown right now.
Wilson Alexander is our guest, covers LSU for The Advocate. Got a great piece up at theadvocate.com right now talking about the new frontier in terms of revenue streams and athlete compensation in NCAA athletics. One of the pieces that you talked about in here is revenue streams that LSU is going to have to try to tap into to help pay the athletes the $20 million that you have reported. And one of the things you write about are jersey patches and on-field advertisements. What did you uncover there?
Yeah, part of the Playfly deal that LSU struck is that Playfly is kind of given the exclusive right to go out and try to sell those things, basically, and help LSU find a partner for on-field advertisements and for jersey patches. For the on-field advertisements, we've already seen in basketball this year, there's a Cox logo on the floor of basketball games. It would be like that, but at Alex Box Stadium and at Tiger Stadium. That started being allowed this past year. LSU didn't jump in on that immediately, but their deputy AD for revenue generation, Clay Harris, told me that you're going to see that in the not too distant future here. Logos on the field there, probably on the 25-yard line at Tiger Stadium, and something at Alex Box Stadium as well. And with jersey patches, those aren't allowed by the NCAA yet, but there's conversations happening on the national level to basically sell space on a jersey for a company to advertise. And that's something that LSU is certainly looking into. Clay Harris said that they've been doing research into that over the past 6 months behind the scenes. And as soon as that would be allowed by the NCAA, if those rules change, then LSU is ready to capitalize on it. He called it one of the most valuable assets that LSU would ever have to sell. And so that they would certainly be interested in finding someone to do that with.
I'm curious, and this is not something that you wrote in the story, but I feel like you've had a lot of conversations. Perhaps this has come up. There was a time there for like 20 plus years where it was such a facilities arms race, and LSU certainly competed in that. They've spent a lot of money upgrading facilities. Well, now with the amount of money that's going to have to go right back to the athletes, do you think that part of things is going to slow down?
Certainly. There was last year when LSU opened its performance facility, the athletic training area in the football operations building that did that new development. One of the things someone told me was they were really glad that got done when it did, because that is not going to be something that necessarily is a priority moving forward. It is certainly still something that LSU can continue to build out with its facilities. They're still in the midst of working on this new arena. That would be a huge facilities type project. But obviously, even the funding for that is different than what you might have seen in the past, because that's going to be something that is done, with it's not just like money that you're getting from donors to build a facility or something like that, or just leaning fully on tap. The funding for that is different. So that's really what we're pivoting away from. It's Scott Woodward has said before, it's going away from capital in that direction toward human capital and investing in the players in order to be able to have them on your rosters, because that's what they're more focused on these days is the money that they're actually going to have in their pocket. They still want the good facilities. LSU can't just let those, fall apart and rot, and it's certainly not going to let them do, but it's not the priority that it used to be.
And last one here, Wilson, we appreciate some of your time here on this Monday. In your conversations and in your understanding of what this new world is going to look like, how do you feel like LSU is going to stack up in terms of their ability to acquire talent with the folks who are in wealthier states, wealthier donor bases, bigger alumni bases, that kind of thing? I think that's what LSU fans are curious about and maybe fearful of.
Yeah, we've already seen that be an issue at times over the past few years. The collective was sort of slow to get really up and running to the level that some other places are and have been. I think we've seen a change over the past year in particular, maybe a year and a half plus. But that's something that needs that sort of approach and mindset needs to continue even when if collectives aren't happening, and this is something where LSU is going out to try to find those true NIL deals like we talked about, then that mindset still needs to exist. It would still need those people, those corporate partners, to be willing to get in on those things with LSU athletes. And in that regard, I do think LSU is well positioned. I mean, it's a nationally recognized brand. That's something that it has been trying to leverage for the past 2 years, but it's sort of the whole landscape kind of shifted away from that toward these anonymous donor dollars and basically just giving over the table payments in a way that we used to see under the table payments. And so I think LSU is well positioned if it can become more of a true NIL model. But we'll kind of see how things play out because we just really don't know what the future of collectives are. But either way, I think the thing moving forward is how do you exceed the cap and how much can you exceed the cap, because everybody is going to be trying to do that.
Story at The Advocate. LSU may have a way to help players earn more money than the Tigers will be able to pay them. You can go check it out online or in your hard copy as well. Wilson, we appreciate some time, man. Thanks.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
You too. That is Wilson Alexander from The Advocate. Briefly on this while we're still here before we go to break. Like, I've watched every game LSU's played in basketball. I don't know that I could have told you this morning that there was a Cox logo on the floor. Like, I honestly...
You never noticed that?
I'm sure I have. It's right there, but it didn't stick with me, I guess is the point.
I always remember that. Like, it's been there for a long time.
So that one it hasn't bothered me. I don't know that LSU's basketball floor is as like powerful in my brain as the football field and the baseball fields are.
Yeah.
That's just a personal thing maybe, or maybe that's just a common deal. Yeah, I mean, if there was a huge corporate logo in the middle of center field, like that would bum me out a little bit. If there's like super huge colorful stuff on the 25-yard lines, like that'll bum me out a little bit. But what would bum me out more is if LSU couldn't recruit any players because they didn't have the revenue stream to revenue share with the student athletes. And if you're going to pay $20 million a year to the players across all the sports, you have to generate revenue from just about anywhere you can. I believe, y'all know this, I believe LSU's football uniforms to be as iconic as any in American sport. I don't think that's hyperbole. No one else looks like that, and I think it's gorgeous. I think it's awesome. Now, LSU watered it down a little bit this year because they never wore them, but that's the case. And if you slapped a big red logo on it or something, it would bum me out. Now, that said, the Cubs did this on the sleeve, and the Yankees have done it on the sleeve, and it hasn't been that big a deal. If you gave me the option, like do it or don't do it, and money's not on the table, I don't want to do it. But I understand. Like, I understand that we're entering a new world. Beck, do you have any stronger thoughts than me on that?
No, I just think that the uniform is you are one that values the history and standard of uniforms. I think more than most people. I think there's going to be. I think a lot of people in my generation are not going to care that much if they do have a patch on the uniform. I don't really care that much about it. I mean, the NBA's been doing it for years. They have the little patch on the front, the front corner of the shoulder.
The Cubs have a Motorola M on their left shoulder, and it hasn't made me turn the game off.
Right.
So it's. And I don't want to. I'm being careful not to actually use an actual brand because I don't mean to disparage anybody in a hypothetical. But like, I would like to have an example of like who wants to buy the jersey patch and what does that look like. If it's like orange and red, like that's going to be like, come on, man. If it's subtle and like black and white or something, like the Cubs Motorola is this basically the same color as the jersey. It kind of goes. The Yankees have an insurance company, and it's navy and white. But if it's something obnoxious, like I'll probably say something. But it's just a new world, and I understand where LSU's coming from. And as I've always said, as changes come and go, like the most important thing is winning. And you basically have to do what it takes within reason to go win. And if you can get I don't know what the dollar figures we're talking about here are, but I'm sure it's tens. You're talking about, I'm sure, 8 figures worth of money to get patches on the jersey and logos on the field. it is what it is. Like, I love the fact that Alec Box Stadium, they just took all the outfield wall stuff and they don't have colorful logos anymore. They just have everything in green and white. I think that looks a lot better. And that kind of goes back to the point of kind of blending it in and making it look seamless while taking a few bucks on the side. So again, I think that this is probably a talking point to your point back for like 50% of people, and the other 50 are like, who gives a damn? When do they play? I do care about some of that stuff. I like tradition. I like history. I like ambiance. I like that kind of stuff. And we'll see just how it all shakes out. But as I mentioned at the top, I'm admitting I'm not blowing a gasket. Like, I couldn't have told you this morning what company's logo was on the court at the PMAC. I would have had a hard time coming up with that off the top of my head. So that just goes to show you, I guess, maybe some things are a little less important than I think they are in my head. We'll see. Let's talk LSU-Nicholls when we come back on the LSU. It's not on the LSU Sports Radio Network. This would be 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. For all your printing, scanning, copying needs, Gulf Coast Office Products, GCOPnet.com. All kind of new technology over there, Gulf Coast Office Products. But more importantly, they've just got an expertise in printing, scanning, copying. And oftentimes, folks don't know exactly what type of printer, scanner, copier they need for their line of work. And the beautiful thing about Gulf Coast Office Products is that they have clients in every vertical market you can think of. So no matter what it is that you do professionally, they've got clients and they understand the needs of that vertical market and they can help you out with it. They've got a ton of resources, over $1 million of product here in the Baton Rouge store, but they're statewide as well. They can help you out wherever you are in the state of Louisiana, but they're not so big that you're just a line item and probably have to call a recorded line. You're going to get somebody on the phone. If you call Gulf Coast Office Products, you're going to have a relationship with your rep, whether it's Trey Beal or whoever it is over there at Gulf Coast. They're going to make sure that you are properly taken care of. They do it for us here at Guarantee. We love working with the folks at Gulf Coast Office Products. Go find them online, GCOPnet.com. All right, LSU and Nicholls tonight, 6 o'clock first pitch from the box. A little Monday night action. Remember, LSU was supposed to go to Nicholls Wednesday of last week. That game got postponed. They did a little bit of a shuffle. Now, instead of Nicholls coming to Baton Rouge in April, which was scheduled, LSU is going to make that trip down to Thibodaux in April, and Nicholls will play in Baton Rouge tonight at 6 o'clock. It's a busy week for LSU. They'll play a Monday night game against Nicholls. They'll travel to Dallas on Tuesday. They'll play Dallas Baptist on Wednesday at Globe Life Field. Then they'll go up to practice at Frisco on Thursday, and they'll play a 3-game set in that Frisco tournament on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday against Kansas State, somebody in Sam Houston. I'll come up with that. Nebraska. Kansas State, Nebraska, and Sam Houston. I'll be there for my show on Friday, noon to 2 from Ryder Park. And then I'll be there to cover the games for LouisianaSports.net throughout the weekend. So looking forward to getting up to the Dallas area on Friday morning and doing the show from the ballpark on Friday. So if you're there in Frisco, whether you're traveling over from Louisiana or you live in the Dallas area and are going over to see the Tigers, I hope you can come see me. I'll be in the ballpark from noon to 2 on the air. Looking very much forward to that. But it all starts this evening against Nicholls. I wrote a preview for the game at LouisianaSports.net, and I've got a few things that I'm looking for. None of them are necessarily, specific to a game with Nicholls. I do think you're going to see Gavin Guidry start this game. He was supposed to start on Wednesday. I don't have a good reason that he has not pitched yet. I don't think he's hurt. I don't think he's in the doghouse. I think Jay Johnson has just prioritized getting some other guys some innings because he wants to see them work. He knows what he's got in Gavin Guidry. I think you've got a new and improved Gavin Guidry with a little bit more juice on the fastball and with a changeup that he's been developing. But you know what you've got in terms of the moxie, and the guy's made 45 appearances with an ERA of 3.23 in 2 years at LSU. He's been a good arm for you, and I expect to see him tonight. I'm curious how long they extend him in this game. I'd love to see him go 3 innings or so. I'd love to see him feature that changeup. I'd love to see what the radar gun reads. Not the best day to let it fly. It's still a little bit chilly out there, but I'm curious to see him if, in fact, he is the starting pitcher tonight. I kind of expect that, but that does remain to be seen. I mentioned this at the top of the show when I talked offense. I want to know who hits leadoff tonight. I think that's an important spot in the LSU order. I don't think Chris Stanfield, because he struck out 3 times in one game on Friday, deserves to be stripped of his duties there. But if they want to take another look at Daniel Dickinson, if they want to put Derek Curiel up there, if they want to go with Tanner Reeves for a second straight game, I'm just curious to see what they do at the leadoff spot there. And the defense. I think LSU's defense has been phenomenal. Yes, they're getting some assistance from a lot of strikeouts, but LSU's errors this year, there are 4 of them. Binge on Saturday threw a pickoff throw into center field. DJ Primo picked up a swinging bunt and threw it in the outfield. That's 2 throwing errors by pitchers. You had Costello, who misplayed a foul ball for an error, and then you had a catcher's interference on Luis Hernandez in the opener. So none of your regulars in the field have made a misplay, and you've played 7 games. So to me, like, that's a very, very positive thing that LSU has caught the ball. It hasn't been necessarily a lot of difficult plays that LSU's had to make. Some of the Curiel made a really good play in the outfield. Stanfield's made a couple of nice plays in the outfield. But LSU's making the plays defensively. And when you hear Major League Baseball organizations talk about the defensive side of the game, they'll talk about it in terms of run prevention, which marries the pitching staff and your defense. And I think LSU's pitching staff is going to be towards the top of the SEC in terms of talent and performance. And if you can catch the ball behind a staff that's really good, you give yourself a great chance to win a ton of games. I know that sounds obvious, but college baseball players make a lot of errors. College infielders make a lot of errors. College players make bad throws often. Outfielders can have some trouble here and there, and you really haven't seen that from LSU. So while I do have some concerns about the offense and how it comes together and where the star power is and where the power comes from, LSU did not hit a home run over the weekend. That concern lessens if you pitch it great and catch it great, because you don't have to be as good on offense. So tonight you're playing a Nicholls team that is hitting 248 as a team, a Nicholls team that has 2 home runs total. If LSU plays 9 innings of error-free baseball with that pitching staff, Nicholls isn't going to score a lot of runs, and you have a great chance to win the game. That's just kind of the way I see LSU's team right now as you're playing through these cold games, as you're trying to figure out how the batting lineup works. You can do a lot of things in terms of quote-unquote tinkering if you're pitching it great and you're catching it great. And LSU is absolutely catching the ball great right now, and you certainly hope that that continues this evening. So LSU and Nicholls tonight, 6 o'clock from the box. If you want to listen to that one, you can. It'll be on our sister station, Eagle 98.1. Pregame will fire up at 5:30. I believe it'll be Chris Blair and Doug Thompson on the call for this one. So looking forward to LSU and Nicholls tonight from the box. I want to send out another reminder. We had sports trivia, last week. It was at Pizza by Roan's on Perkins Road. Fantastic crowd. Appreciate those of you that came out to win some gift cards, eat some pizza, and we watched some basketball as well. Had a great time. We're going to continue to do that. That was kind of a trial run. We'd been at Pluckers for 10 years, so we're kind of looking for a new home there, and Pizza by Roan's was generous enough to open their doors. So we had a great time last Tuesday. We're going to do it again tomorrow, but we are going to change the time. So if you're listening and you are a frequent trivia player on Tuesdays, we're going to move everything up to 8 o'clock. We've been at 8:30 forever and ever, amen. We are going to move things up to 8 o'clock. Pizza by Roan's generally doesn't stay open that late on weekdays, so we're going to try to help their staff out a little bit and get out of there a little bit more quickly. So 8 o'clock for sports trivia tomorrow at Pizza by Roan's. We'll have LSU and Tennessee on the TV. They got fantastic pizza. They got wings as well. You can drink some cold drinks and win some gift cards. Always a good time, so I hope to see a bunch of y'all out there. Pizza by Roan's tomorrow at 8 o'clock for sports trivia. When we come back, the Saints have hired a New Orleans native to their staff. Who is it and what does it mean? We'll talk about that coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is the website. Nothing more important than the safety, security of your home and your family. And at the Palmer House, we've trusted Audio Video Security Solutions with all of that. Mitchell Fisher and his team came over. We told him what we were looking for, what our budget was. He said, okay, we got you. They brought the equipment over, 2 cameras, 1 front door, 1 at the back door, installed the burglar alarm, installed the apps on our phone, walked us through how to use it all. I can remotely disarm and arm my burglar alarm. I can 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, look at a camera of my front door and my back door. I can pause, rewind, zoom in, all of that. Plus, I don't pay any cloud storage fees, any of that.
It's been fantastic for us at the Palmer House. And if you don't have that installed at your home, well, I know who you should call. It's Audio Video Security Solutions. Find them on Instagram, AVSS_BR. Great resource there of some of the fantastic products that they have. You can also find them online. It's Audio Video Security Solutions. They're online at avssla.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. Appreciate Dr. Jeremy Burnham for jumping aboard. Appreciate Wilson Alexander as well. Been a fast-moving Monday show. Hope your work week is off to a good start. Kellen Moore's tenure as the Saints head coach off to a good start, putting together that staff, and told you last week at the end of the week that Brandon Staley was his pick for defensive coordinator, and they're continuing to build out that defensive staff. I mentioned that the first thing Kellen Moore wanted to do was get his offense in order. He got the guys that he wanted. Starts with Doug Nussmeier at coordinator, and you kind of fill out the group that you want. And then you got to get the defensive staff, but that's got to start with the coordinator, and he's got to kind of get the guys that he wants to implement his defense. So you get Staley on board, and you let him have a heavy hand in terms of putting together the defensive staff. And one of the moves that the Saints have reportedly made today, according to NFL Media's Tom Pelissero, is that they're bringing Terry Joseph back to New Orleans. The Joseph family, many of you likely know, big football family in the city of New Orleans. Of course, Mickey was a star player, then went to Nebraska, then he coached at LSU with the wide receivers for a long time. Vance has certainly had a great career in the NFL. They are Terry's cousins. Now, Terry went to Shaw and has bounced around in his coaching career, but is most recently the defensive passing game coordinator and secondary coach at Texas, the University of Texas, the Longhorns. And he's never been an NFL coach, but he's obviously got this opportunity based on some really quality work there at Texas. And he's got work to do here with the New Orleans secondary. This is not a position that's been filled in the Dennis Allen era. Dennis Allen certainly had a lot to do with what the Saints did in the secondary, but the team has fallen off from that perspective. The Saints were 27th in football against the pass last year. So you're going to have to tighten that up. Now, you've got Alontae Taylor, obviously. You've got Kool-Aid McKinstry, obviously, and they finished the season at the corner spots for New Orleans. You traded Marshawn Lattimore away. He is gone. Paulson Adebo, unfortunately, had his season cut short with a very significant injury, and the Saints will have a question of whether or not they sign him. This is the general thought about Paulson Adebo, that he would have played himself out of the Saints' price range down the stretch last year. But with that significant injury, does his market kind of slow down, and are the Saints able to re-sign him to a deal at a more reasonable price? That just remains to be seen. But the Saints have been one of the better pass defense teams in terms of personnel and in terms of production in the Dennis Allen era. They've done a good job of developing good defensive backs, especially at corner. Lattimore is the most famous example, but I would suggest that Adebo was a really, really good player and pick for them, and I think Alontae Taylor has shown some flashes as well. Remains to be seen with Kool-Aid. He was hit and miss this past year, but it's a rookie year, and he was moving around a lot. He was playing the nickel, then they had injuries. He had to go outside. He got picked on a little bit, but that does happen. You got Tyrann Mathieu back there for what he believes is a couple more years, and then what are you going to do with Jordan Howden? They've got some work to do to address safety, I think, because I think Tyrann's getting up there in age, and you may need to go get a safety here or there. They tried that last year, and I don't know that any of it took. But Joseph has roots in New Orleans. He comes from a football family. He did a really good job at Texas where they were talented. I mean, that was a good defense that Texas put out there on the field last year. But I think that while it's going to be important to draft
and signing free agency and identifying, undrafted free agents in the secondary, you've got to continue to develop some of these young players. Like, you need Alontae Taylor and Kool-Aid McKinstry to develop into really, really good players. And because they're young and cheap. We keep coming back to that with the Saints. Young and cheap, young and cheap, young and cheap. You've got to develop those guys. And if they think that Terry Joseph is the guy to do that, I'm all aboard. You look at those guys, they're under contract, they're talented, you've invested in them, it's their time. You've moved on from Marshawn Lattimore. We'll see with Adebo. But the development at that position is crucial. Like, there are some spots where you're just going to have to overhaul. Like, there just are. I don't think that corner is one of those. Safety might be. I don't think that corner is. And so Terry Joseph comes in, Archbishop Shaw graduate, to try to help with the secondary. Incidentally, in his resume, Joseph has worked at LSU, Tennessee, Nebraska, Texas A&M, North Carolina, Notre Dame, and Texas. That's over about 20 years of coaching. So not a young buck here, just a guy that hasn't spent time in the NFL. But I think a good hire there for New Orleans as they try to figure out that defense behind Brandon Staley, who put one of the best defenses in the NFL on the field when he was with the Rams just a few years ago. And the Chargers were pretty good until they weren't, and then Staley was let go. So just interesting. I think all eyes now for the NFL and for the Saints turn to the Combine, which is this week. We'll have coverage of that at LouisianaSports.net thanks to our friend Ross Jackson. And the Saints will certainly be there in full force trying to figure out some of the guys that they need to bring in to try to overhaul the talent on this roster to make sure that New Orleans rejoins the playoff party here sooner rather than later. So that's our look at the newest member of the New Orleans Saints hire. That is Terry Joseph. He'll be the defensive passing game coordinator. If you're looking for Saints coverage, you can always find it on YouTube, Hunt on Saints. You can always find it wherever you find your podcast, Hunt on Saints. And you can always find it at LouisianaSports.net, where Ross Jackson is rocking and rolling with all the news and all the opinion there on our Saints tab over at LouisianaSports.net. And as we mentioned, it's always 100% free. So we got one segment left to go. We will we'll close things out on a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that is on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. How about a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty? 10 years, 100,000 miles. How about 3 years of complimentary maintenance? How about 3 years of complimentary valet maintenance? They drive to you, leave you a loaner so you can get on about your day, bring your vehicle back to the dealership right there, Airline at Pico, get that work done, whether it's your oil change or your wiper fluid, or maybe it's an air filter. They handle all that. It's complimentary for 3 years. Drive it right on back to you. Can't be any more convenient than that. That's what they aim to do at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Have a discussion with one of their brand ambassadors there at the store. Fantastic people, unbelievable team, and a great line of vehicles. And every vehicle, from the entry level all the way to the highest end, comes with the same safety base because they take that very, very seriously at Genesis. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. Find them online, GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
ESPN, Baton Rouge, and Citizens Bank and Trust want to help cover your car payments. It's a $5,000 grand prize with a bonus chance to win free car washes from Benny's Car Wash for 6 months. We're also letting you earn extra entries by subscribing to our LouisianaSports.net daily newsletter. We have just one more day to sign up. Tomorrow is the deadline. If you want to sign up, visit 1045ESPN.com. And 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge is your home for the New Orleans Pelicans. Tune in as the Pels host the Spurs tomorrow night at 7. They hit the road against the Suns Thursday night and Friday night 8 p.m. and then travel to face the Jazz Sunday at 7. Pelicans coverage is brought to you locally by Industry Makes.
Did you see Paxton Kling start to his season?
He has as many home runs as the entire LSU team, Hunt.
He's got 4.
He has 5, I think.
Does he have 5?
Yeah.
He hit his 5th one? I missed that.
So.
So he's got 5 homers. He hit 5 at LSU in 2 years.
Yeah. Change the scenery, Hunt. You never know.
Man, we are Penn State. Gotta love the Nittany Lions.
Probably could have used that. Probably could have used that kind of bat in the lineup this year.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm pulling for the guy. I hope he does well. I just he did not show that in 2 years in Baton Rouge. Incidentally, and we won't overdo this because we're going to talk about it on Wednesday when we do SEC baseball power rankings. Have you caught the start to the season for the Missouri Tigers this year?
Yeah.
It's been a bit of a struggle for Missouri. They went down to Puerto Rico.
I think you had them last.
I did.
If I remember correctly.
Just spoiler alert, I'm not sure they play in the midweek this week. They will remain last.
Okay.
They opened the season. This was last week. They went to Puerto Rico. They lost the opener 10-0 to Penn State. They beat UConn 11-7, and UConn's almost always in a regional. That's a nice win for Missouri there, 11-7. They lost to Stetson 9-7. So you lost 2 games to Penn State and Stetson. You come back in the midweek and you play Central Florida and lose 7-1. Not competitive. You play Florida A&M. Not necessarily a power in the baseball world. You beat them 6-5. Then you play Alabama State, who is usually in a regional because they win that league, but they're not very good. Alabama State beat Missouri 10-2. Then they beat Southern 15-3. But you've got already, through 2 weeks of baseball, Missouri has lost 10-2 to Alabama State, 7-1 to Central Florida, 10-0 to Penn State, and 9-7 to Stetson. Like, when I tell you that LSU needs to get off to a good start in league play, that may be an understatement because Missouri is coming to the box. I very, very rarely call for sweeps, like saying you need to sweep an SEC series. That's very difficult to do. Last year, LSU kind of put themselves in a position where they needed to try to go get a couple of sweeps because you started 3-12 in the league. So that kind of goes without saying that you need to kind of take care of your business at that point and win as many games as you can. When you got a team that is losing to MEAC schools and getting blown out and run ruled by Penn State, like, you need to beat those guys. It's a much more forgiving open to league play this year than it was last year when LSU, I think I know this off the top of my head, their start to conference play last year was at Mississippi State, home Florida, at Tennessee, at Arkansas, Vanderbilt, something. It's those teams. I don't know exactly the order, but that was pretty rough. Missouri in the box for your first 3 SEC games. That needs to go pretty well for the Tigers. So we'll cross that bridge in a couple of weeks when we get to it. Still got 2 weeks of non-conference play left, but tough start for the Missouri Tigers on the diamond thus far. All right, Beck, let's play some Take It or Leave It.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
All righty, first one here, The Little Mermaid. Take it or leave it.
So we're going through Disney movies. He's seeing them for the first time. I'm seeing them for the first time in, I want to say, 28, 30 years. I mean, I probably haven't seen The Little Mermaid since I was 7. That's 30 years ago.
Yep.
I'll take it. It's good. It did hold up. I liked it. He loves it. He's watching it over and over again. I will say we have a little bit of a problem with The Little Mermaid. Just a small complaint here. We've got a 16-year-old getting married 2 days after meeting someone.
Yeah, that's a bit much, but I mean...
Little problematic.
Yeah. I mean, you see all of these shows say 90 Day Fiancés, the Love is Blind show and everything. I mean,
yeah, but they're not
just
16.
That's true.
She explicitly says she's 16 years old in the first couple scenes.
Not a great look.
But bit of a problem. Yeah. But hey, look, it's so funny how emotions work because I haven't seen that movie again in 30 years. And I just felt like Ursula was the scariest thing I had ever seen in my life when I was like 5. And she's not that scary now, that I'm 37. She was quite frightening back in the day.
Oh, yeah,
when she
course.
gets to be massive.
Very scary.
Yeah, and then she gets all the seas all whipped up and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, tough gig there for Ariel to agree that she's got to fall in love with a guy and she can't talk for 3 days.
That's
tough. I didn't remember that as a plot point.
Yeah.
And she did not win that bet.
No.
But shout out King Triton. He gave his soul up for his daughter. He turned into a little. We
need a couple of we need some movie reviews from you, Hunt, for the go watching these Disney movies.
Well, you're getting one right now. We've watched 2.
Okay, next one, The Lion King. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. It's good. I remembered the plot of The Lion King. I remembered that one a little bit better. But it is good.
It's a little interesting to me that his favorite 2 movies that he's watched, The Land Before Time and Lion King, both so directly take on death.
They do.
Like right
It's a
there.
very main point of the story.
Simba needs to chill out getting his dad got in the stampede.
Yeah.
But shout out to Timon and Pumbaa. Big time by Pumbaa to like take care of the hyenas. It was a big move by him there. But yeah, I thought that held up too. I thought it was good. I have no idea really the plot of Beauty and the Beast except for the fact that like, I mean, I kind of have a general, but like what happens. So we're gonna have to do that one. I don't know anything about Sleeping
Got
Beauty
the Jungle
either.
Book on the docket. That's a really good one.
We can get to that too. He'll like Jungle Book.
Yeah, he will.
He likes animals a lot. But he's watched Lion King and Little Mermaid, and he very much prefers Little Mermaid.
Interesting. You would not expect that from a boy.
Yeah, here he is.
You never know.
He's into it.
All right, next one here. An NFL team has submitted a proposal to have the league ban the Eagles tush-push play for executive Troy Vincent. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to take it. I don't like the play. I don't. That's not what we made this sport for. Like, that looks more like rugby to me. I think it's a dumb rule that you can push your own teammate. Like, that would be so. It was outlawed forever. I don't know why we didn't. I find it to be. Like, it's not what we're trying to accomplish in the sport when you've got a 330-pound offensive guard moving a running back forward. Like, that's tough for the defense to deal with.
Yeah.
Trying to tackle 2 guys.
My only thing
Just
is
outlaw it.
Yeah. I understand the point. My thing is, if this play was so undefendable, then why isn't every team running it?
Well,
Because
you have to get into that spot, but I guess you do get into that spot a lot.
teams get into that spot plenty of times.
Yeah.
I just don't understand, because if it was a league-wide problem where every team is doing this every time they have 4th and inches or 4th and 1, I can understand that. But the Eagles are really the only. I mean, some other teams do it a little bit, but they're the only team that does it consistently.
I'm curious,
So-
like if I'm a Saints fan, and this is 9 years ago, I don't want Drew Brees doing that 4 times a game.
No, but you could put Taysom in there to do, or put it in the backup. You could have somebody
Yeah.
else designated to do it if you wanted to.
It's a reasonable point, I guess. I just I would outlaw the ability to move your player forward in football. It was outlawed forever, and I don't know why we switched it.
Yeah.
But you see that all the time now.
Yeah, my thing is, my thing would just be, if this is a thing where the whole league is doing it, it's a problem, I can understand. But it's for some reason only the Eagles do it. So maybe they just have it figured out perfectly. I don't know.
They won the Super Bowl.
They
so
did.
They're doing some things right.
They're doing something right.
Saints got their coach, baby. Let's go.
They got him. All right, last one. The Scotty Scheffler arrest will be featured in the Netflix series Full Swing's 3rd season. We'll get answers on what really happened. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to leave it, because if that footage was there, we'd have it by now.
Yeah.
I watched the teaser that had all the interviews of Damon and of Scheffler, and who else they interviewed about it? Tom Kim.
Yeah, I was going to say, and then who was the guy that just had to be showing up and videoed it? I think it was a media guy.
Yeah, it was. It was the guy.
I can't remember his name. I can't remember who it was.
I can see his face, but
Jeff
I can't.
Darlington.
That's
there
you
who
go.
It was, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they may have some footage, but like you're not gonna see Scheffler driving with the guy latched to his car. That was so weird. Scheffler talks about it in the thing, like, I mean, I didn't watch season 2 of Full Swing. I probably should have.
I haven't either. No, I might need to binge watch both of them.
I'll watch this one. Alyssa's deep into Ozark these days, which I've already seen.
Good show.
So I go in there, pop in every once in a while, and just check out a little bit of it. My dad just finished Breaking Bad in like 8 days.
Oh, he's retired.
Retirement. You just do whatever you want. But yeah, I'm jealous of those. We're on White Lotus now every Sunday.
Oh yeah, good show.
Watched episode 2 last night. Some weird characters.
Haven't started it yet.
There's only 2. Just knock them out. There's some weird folks.
There's always weird people. I mean, in the last other seasons, there's just weird people.
It's weird folks. So we'll see how that goes. But that's it for Take It or Leave It. And that's really it for the Hunt Palmer Show here on this Monday. We're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. If you missed any of the show, catch it on demand, 1045ESPN.com's on demand tab. Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google, wherever you find your sound, you can always find us. Matt is about to drive you home on After Further Review. We'll be back tomorrow, same time and same place for a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're right here on the capital city's leader in sports talk, 1045 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
The Hunt Palmer Show.